G'day. I'm going to talk a bit about ego today, and basically in two parts. So the first part will be about how ego can affect our training and our training model, and the second part obviously about real world experiences and the issues it brings up. So for the training issue with ego, and this depends quite a bit on which sort of martial arts you're pursuing and your intended outcome. One of the main problems with ego is the fear of failure, and it is a problem in the sense that it can limit you exposing yourself to situations where you might find yourself vulnerable. And the problem with that is if you're not exposing yourself to those vulnerabilities, they're the best places to learn, and so you're missing out on a really important learning moment there. And so it would be very easy for you to train and stay within your limitations, but the problem with that is that you never find out what more you could do and where things could take you. And the funny thing about that, depending on which sort of martial art you're doing, will depend on how much you're extended into past those limitations. So if you're doing competitive martial art, there's a good chance that you're going to be pushed past your limitations quite a bit in that desire to compete. There's a sort of a paradox there. The desire to compete and win and encounter tends to be an ego-based decision, but it has its place in bettering yourself because you're putting yourself in a pressure situation with the desire to see what you can do. And that's an important idea. The problem where we start having a conflict with that idea of winning is that we're thinking more about our survival, and survival can't rely on the idea of winning, and particularly when it comes to multiple opponents. So it's often been said you can't beat a group, and you probably 99 times out of 100 won't beat a group. But that's different to surviving a group and getting to an exit, those sorts of things. So it's a different mindset going into a situation about when you're thinking about survival as opposed to winning an encounter. But as I said, having said all that, the competitive martial arts do a good job in putting themselves in a situation where they're having to improve. They're getting beaten by better opponents until the point where they might be the best in the world at some point. But at least they're exposing themselves to that pressure situation. And some of the other martial arts which I might have issue with in terms of their lack of exposure to a genuine pressure testing model is that they keep themselves safe and they never extend themselves and ask genuine questions about what it is that they're trying to achieve and what it is that is their outcome. And in particular, if you're not exposing yourself to pressure that is something other than what your style is, so you'll often see karate or other striking arts and they'll only train against other people who are doing their style, and so they're basically facing a mirror. Now the problem with that is that they're not finding flaws that are outside of their style, outside of their box. And so they can become really, really accomplished within that small framework. But does that apply when they're coming up against people who know how to tackle you and know how to grapple and know how to do other things other than just the striking? So if your martial art doesn't extend you past what you feel comfortable, then you need to ask yourself why. And a lot of the time there's an ego component to that. And we need to be mindful that any time that we're feeling fearful of failure or fearful of not knowing something, firstly, that's something we should be thinking, okay, this is a moment that we should be learning, rather than moving away from it because it makes us feel uncomfortable. So if we're genuine about learning in our martial art, we need to relish those moments where we're feeling uncomfortable because they're the richest seams of learning that we'll come across. So in general, fear of failure is a big one. Also, this idea that we can learn from anyone. So even at the highest level, you should be of a mindset such that there could be someone who walks in the door for the first day. They might be able to teach you something a bit that you didn't know, or they bring a perspective that you'd never thought of before. And to leave yourself open to that you can learn something from anyone or anything at any time, firstly relieves you of a lot of burden that you feeling the need to provide the answers yourself, particularly if you're the head instructor or the sensei or Sifu. You don't have to provide all the answers. You just have to provide an environment where the answers can be attained if people are willing to work and problem solve, but you don't have to provide them and it's actually better for them if you don't. So maintaining this attitude that other people might have something to offer that you've never thought of is really healthy, both for yourself and also for the organisation you're in. You should be looking for those people to express whatever it is that they're trying to do and help them along their way. It's the healthiest version of a martial arts club is for everyone to feel like they're part of the learning process and not just a top-down approach. So there's some of the aspects in terms of the negative sense, but also the positive. Well, the positives of ego is that it makes you want to be better. So I want to be a better martial artist, and that helps me be a better person. And even if it's a bit competitive, I want to be better than John, who's my peer, and I want to be better than him for no other reason than I want to be a better martial artist. Those healthy rivalries within a club can be really helpful, as long as they don't extend to anything antagonistic. But your ego can play a really good role in motivating yourself for training. I think we all know what that's about. So we don't want to extinguish the role of ego. We just need to acknowledge when it gets in the way of our learning, and how can we put it aside for that moment, be humble, learn, have a rich experience and move on, and leave yourself open for those really important experiences that can teach you far more about yourself than just winning does. And lastly, when we're thinking about ego in a real world experience, if we're out on a social occasion and something offensive is said to someone and things escalate, I would argue that majority of the time things escalate is because people are making decisions based on their ego. If I'm offended by someone, that they've said something to me or to my partner, it's easy to fall into this response of, I want retribution for that offensive thing that he or she said. And that's an ego-based idea. That's not being safe. That's saying, I want something. I don't want to be seen as being less than what I am, which is ego. If we're really thinking about what it is to be a martial artist and well-trained and skilled and understanding the world a bit better than most in terms of violent encounters, the best thing we can do is remove ourselves from that situation, be it ourselves or our partner, before it escalates. So reminding yourself that if someone's saying something and you feel the need to respond, where does that need come from? Is it a need because you want to best them, you want to show your skills, or is it a genuine sense of safety? And we're looking for the safety. So just be aware that when the ego starts taking you places that you really shouldn't be going, and you know from all that you've learnt or instructed over the years that you don't go there, being aware of when the ego is trying to take you there is really important. So if we can identify a little clearer when the ego is starting to take us places we don't want to go, be it in training or in social circumstances where a violent moment could happen, we just have to be more mindful of that and be better at being able to identify when the ego is playing a part and to put it aside. I hope this helps, and I'll have some more videos more specifically about ego in the future. All right, thanks. Bye.